Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Education USA. From Thursday, we are moving on to Tuesday this time. So we have with us today Dr. Jeremy Marinas, Vice President, and Pallavi Sharma, Regional Advisor from Tiffin University in Ohio. So they are here with us today to give you the most important tips needed in shortlisting universities that best fit your requirements. So both of them will be sharing the general process and also give a lot of examples from their own university as well as their past experiences. So hope you will all benefit by this presentation. Of course, I would like to welcome all our online viewers. Thank you for joining us today. And you can watch this live streaming either in our YouTube channel. Please keep posting your questions and we are here to answer all your queries. Thank you for joining us, and over to Pallavi and Dr. Marinas. But before that, I would just give a quick introduction about Education USA. Most of us already know about this. Education USA is a US State Department program, and it is here to help international students to have accurate, comprehensive, current and unbiased information on US higher education. In India, Education USA is administered by US India Educational Foundation, a binational organization. So over to Pallavi on shortlisting universities for graduate studies.
Thank you, Shanti. And we'll quickly talk about the 5 steps, and this I would relate to the experience that I have with these students when we talk to the students, and how do they really, what's the process they really go through, what is their thought process. So the first and foremost thing is about the research that you have to do for shortlisting any of the universities. So researching means that, of course, the first thing that comes to my mind when I want to research a program is about the program that you really want to study. So yes, we need to define what you want to study, right? And of course, based on that, you would know what's your budget. So you need to sit with your parents, of course, because they are the prime sponsors all the time and most of the time. So you need to sit with your parents and understand what sort of budget you have for that particular study. Then of course, based on these 2 primary things, you would narrow down your choices, because there are a number of universities in the US. There are a variety of options that you have. So I know it's tough to kind of prioritize and kind of narrow down the choices. The next is identifying about how you would finance your education. So there are different options in India and South Asia region. There could be loans, there could be your parents as sponsors. So all of that has to be identified before you really finalize to, or you really go ahead and apply, because most of the universities would require that information as part of the application. So do we. So we require the students to come up with the details of how they're going to fund their studies. So at Tiffin University, we ask these questions as part of the interview process that we have for the students to go through the application. So once the application is made, the immediate next step is to interview with the recruiters. That's mostly myself when it is an Indian students, or we have 2 more recruiters all across the world. So they do ask similar questions about how do you want to fund your studies. So this is a question you definitely need to answer at the time of application. So understanding how you're going to fund your studies is very, very important. Then of course, the important part is completing your application, which requires a lot of documentation. So when you apply to any university, and I can talk specific to Tiffin University, we would need a certain set of documents to be ready, and we would need you to be ready with, let's say, your essays, your letter of references, your academic transcripts and the other details, your experience, your work experience in case you are a working professional coming for the master's program, mostly the MBAs that we provide. So all those documents are required at the time of application, because as I said, our application process would involve interview immediately after the application is made. So we would draft out the questions or would like to understand more based on the profile that you have sent us. And I guess this goes to all the universities because they want to understand the profile in detail. So when you plan to apply to any university, you need to have those documents ready with you. Otherwise, most of the time, either the university would not accept the application as complete application, or they would put the student on hold. So it's you who would keep on thinking as to what's happening really. So the advice is to have the complete documents at the time of application. Then of course, there are different processes that every university takes to give you the I-20. Like in our case, we do require the deposit for the I-20, which ensures that you are the legitimate student, and we kind of have the admission requirements as those. Apart from that, we require the hard copy documents as well to be sent to the head office or the international office in the US for the verification purposes. So every university would have a different process. So know the process before you really apply to any university. And the best way is to really write to the university or get in touch with the university to understand as to what the process is. So this will help you to reach to the I-20 stage very quickly. Of course, it will happen after the admission is confirmed, but then this is the way you can actually reach to this stage very quickly without any kind of issues in between. Jeremy, do you want to add something over here?
All of those processes will lead up to the visa interview, which is the final step to determine whether you are going to be able to pursue your education at your desired university. So once that interview occurs and you are granted your visa, then it's time to prepare for your departure. So you would work with that university that you've been selected to enroll at, and they would help you in preparation for what you need to bring, if you're going to live on campus, if you're going to live within the community, and those type of items that are very important as you're traveling across literally the world to go to a new destination. Talking about everything from the climate that you're going to be experiencing, to food choices, to what accommodations would be provided for you.
Right. Of course, that should include the pre-departure sessions delivered by the EducationUSA team all across India. That would, as Jeremy mentioned, that would help the student to understand what's coming up next and how do you really need to prepare for the departure. I'll go down a little bit to the first point, which is defining priorities. How would you do that? What really is your priority? Is, of course, the student has the best answer for that, but then there could be the reasons like you want to have the international exposure while you're studying. You want to network with people when you're there at the campus. There are certain universities which offer the work on the campus like we do. So yes, that's one of the attraction that the student always has when they really come to us. They'd really like to work on the campus, and that's something that we offer. Now it may or may not be related to their area of studies, not all the time that will be related to what they're studying, but yes, that gives them an exposure to the culture, to the work culture in the US. Do you want to come in here?
No, I think you've covered it.
Yeah, okay. So and of course the primary objective is to have a career in a particular field. So that remains the primary objective for the student. Right, so when you define priorities, there are certain aspects which come into picture. So those are, of course, the requirements that you have. That's the primary thing that you would have in your mind. However, at the same time, it's very important to identify your strengths as well. You know, you may want to study one particular area, but you may not be qualified, or you may not really be very strong in that area. So that's very important for a student to really understand and you know, get the depth knowledge about how and where the strength lies, you know. Then of course, it, as I said, it's driven more towards the career goals that you have. Are you going to meet the career goal after you complete this program? That's a very important question that you should ask yourself, because most of the time we are just you know, thinking about the program which is more popular, but is it really helping you in your career is a question that you need to answer yourself.
So if I could add something, I think as you define your priorities, it's important to understand there are so many different types of universities. So there are universities located in large cities like New York or Los Angeles, but there are universities located in smaller cities like Tiffin University, for example. And both types of universities are great. It just depends on what's the setting that you're looking for. So are you looking to study in a large city, or are you looking to study in a smaller city? Are you looking for a large university, you know, a university that has 30, 40, 50,000 students, or are you looking for a university that has 1,000 to 2,000 to 3,000 students? Those should all be very important priorities that you measure against. Academics, obviously you need to choose what curriculum or what academic path you want to pursue. Just like I described, there are universities of different sizes and different locations. There are universities that specialize in different types of curriculum. So it's important to not just select a university based on the name alone. It's important to look at those other factors. Where is it located? What type of university it is? And what is their specialized curriculum or academic focus?
Right. So I would just talk about why would a student choose Tiffin University and what are the strengths. Just for example, you know, some students would need the financial support in when they really choose any university. They are looking for some kind of financial aid. So yes, few universities provide scholarships, some on the merit based or some on the request based, it depends. So it is an important aspect that you need to identify when you're really researching about a university, whether the university is providing a scholarship on merit based and you really hold that kind of merit while applying. So that's an important question again. So we do provide the scholarships to all the students, whether they're coming for the undergrad or graduate courses. Then a very important question is the class size, because it is definitely important for a student to understand, and it's an important point to consider when you're really looking for the universities to study. What is the class size? What is your comfort? You know, whether you're good with the big class sizes or the small class sizes. This is a question that you need to kind of answer when you're researching about the university. So yes, we do have small class sizes for 12 to 18 students per classes. So that kind of is very comforting for few students who are looking for that kind of attention in a class. Then of course, safety is an important aspect, where a lot of students these days are looking for the credentials of the university being marked as safe, and you know, the other information which is available all over the internet and some of the research engines. So yes, it is important for you to know the culture or the region very well where you are planning to study. So safety is one of the primary concerns for all the students coming from the international area. So we can tell about ourselves that we do have a very safe and secure campus. We are marked as the top 50 safest cities for the students to really study. Do you want to come in here and talk about it?
Yeah, I think as Pallavi was describing, I go back to what I was sharing before, that individual region is important consideration. So the United States, like India, depending on where you are within the country, it could be very different. large cities are very different than small cities. And so safety and security is something that, for us at our university, we're in a small, safe, and secure city, as Pallavi has spoken about. Accreditation, that's another important factor. You want to ensure that the university that you're choosing is regionally accredited, and there are some additional accreditations that specific universities may have. For instance, Tiffin is ACBSP accredited, which is a specific business, an additional business accreditation, okay? Tuition, Pallavi touched on the scholarship opportunities. Each university has probably different styles or different mechanisms for awarding scholarships. We are affordably priced for a private university in the States, and that's something that we really celebrate because we want to make it a realistic possibility. We understand that this is a large commitment for you and your family to invest in. We touched on on-campus jobs. We do provide many on-campus working opportunities for our students. We have several sports teams. We have over 20 NCAA sponsored sports. So football, baseball. We do not have cricket, but we have many other opportunities, tennis to be involved, and then career services. So this is important as you're going through the educational process, that we provide those real life experiences, and we have a career service office that is there to help our students through the navigation of what it's like to work in the real world as you come back to India following your college career.
I would quickly touch upon the OPT options that the student look for these days. So that's one of the aspects that every student should think about. And I guess most of the students think about that in advance. So you need to kind of look into what kind of OPT options or the internship options university really provides you. So of course there is always some kind of cases that we project on our websites. There are some case studies that we have on our YouTube channels. You can always refer to those, and that's where you will get the information on where the students have completed their OPTs and what sort of OPT options students have on the campus. All that is obviously available for all the students through the representatives like me. However, if you want to research it yourself, you should go to those resources that we have online. And I guess that's the most convenient way you can find out what sort of options we offer to our students. Right. Now this is my favorite topic, because when we meet students, of course their expectations and their aspirations are very high, which is great. However, it should always match to what academic and the other proficiencies you have, because that's very, very important, and it's a kind of the best match that you need to find out. Now obviously you need to find out the skill set that you have, and you need to match that with the career opportunities you have, wherever you want to work. So the area of study versus the work also relates to what your skill set is and what your academic and other proficiencies are, which is very, very important for every student to really analyze themselves, because that would lead you to make right decisions about which university you should go to. And that's really, really one of the important aspects that you should keep in mind when you apply to any of the universities. There are, of course, some of the universities which require community services as part of their requirements, but of course we're not one of them for sure. Understanding the key gaps in your skills. Now, when the students are looking for studying something abroad, they are really looking to improvise and kind of expertise in something that they really want to study. So it is important for you to understand whether this particular program would allow you to do so, whether you're really, really gaining something out of this program, or is going back to the same point, or it's just the program which is very popular in country, and that happens a lot of times. So it is important to recognize this point as well. Right. A few of the questions that we have listed down here, which may help you to understand as to whether you're going right or wrong. So first question is about, is the university strong in the field or the area of study that you want to specialize in? Now again, how to kind of establish that understanding is, of course, through the research that you would do. There are multiple resources which I'm sure Shanti can talk about in detail. But yes, this is an important question to ask and research about. Then what is the size of department? What is the student strength? Now one of the important questions here sometimes is about the international community at the campus, as to how many international students you have, not necessarily from India, but international community as a whole. So you need to probably, you may be more comfortable when you have the international student numbers in your hand. So ask these questions when you really come into these sessions. That's important for you to be a little comfortable and understand the culture of the university. Of course, the levels of study in your field, the funding available, again a very important question. Would the university be happy to give you scholarships, and what are the ways to get these scholarships, whether they are merit based or they are need based, because some of the universities would have a need based scholarships, whereas some of the universities like us would give the merit based scholarships. So we do have a slide wherein we'll talk in detail about how the scholarship would work. But in general, this is an important question for, at least I can talk about the Indian students. They'd really look for these kind of options. Are there the research and practical opportunities? Yes, that's the question you should ask, whether you'll be allowed to do some internships or, like I said, on-campus jobs. Sometimes the jobs on campus are related, or the assistantships that you get at the campus. So that's again a very important aspect of while you select a particular university. Sorry. Shanti, you want to come in?
So the accreditation is one of the most important thing, and the qualification what you gain from an university is recognized only if the university is accredited. So it's just not enough if you just look for universities. You should also check all the other factors, as Dr. Malindas was pointing out. Accreditation for programming accreditation is also very, very important. But sometimes at the master level, the program may not have an accreditation, but you must look for university accreditation. That's very important. And adding to that, the characteristics of colleges is definitely one thing you need to take into consideration, because the cost of education also depends upon the nature of the institute. At times the public universities would be more economical compared to the private universities. But whatever be the priority that you list down, your topmost priority is program of your choice, then comes the accreditation. Only if you pass these two filters, it's worth considering those institutions for subsequent checks.
Right. So location, setting, housing, all these three important questions that we have in mind is, of course, now this is a question I ask a lot of students when I talk to them as to, are you comfortable with a suburban campus? Are you comfortable with New York City? Because this is very important, and probably we are not very futuristic when we are really researching about the university. We are just looking at something which is just looking good right now. However, we need to keep in mind that you have to spend at least 2 years in that area. So are you really comfortable with that region? Now there are multiple things that come into picture. It could be weather, it could be the location. I mean, is it a remote location or the main city or the metro city? Like India has a lot of metro and the tier 2 cities. So we need to ask and kind of understand this very clearly before we really finalize a university to study. So, like in our case, like Jeremy mentioned, we are in a suburban place, which is about an hour and a half away from Cleveland, very well connected to Columbus. Yet the place remains a smaller city. You know, so we kind of make that a point when we talk to the student as to, okay, this is a place, this is a region. You need to probably decide when you really plan to apply. So it's important to understand the location. Now again, the setting is more or less the same thing, that whether it's a suburban campus or is a city campus, it's very important to understand this. Housing. A lot of students need that housing on campus and they are not really comfortable living outside the campus, whereas some students would look specifically to the outside campus housing. So it depends on your personal choice completely, but you may want to consider whether whether the university offer that housing or not, because some students may need that support. So again, this is an important question. Now, the favorite part is activities. Now, when the student is there for more than 2 years or less than 2 years, whatever time it is you are spending at the campus, you need to have some co-curricular activities at the campus. So please look into those options that your university offers. Like in our case, we do have clubs which are related to sports, theater, performing arts, music, of course. So a lot of students like that fact about us, that we have a lot of sports activities going on, and students can actually come and learn the sports professionally, which is great. So a lot of our students actually learn tennis at the campus. So it's obviously one of the added activity for them. But yes, that's one thing that the students sometimes like a lot. So all those sports enthusiasts over here, they would like the fact that we do offer a lot of clubs. Yeah, so I just kept this for the understanding as to where we are. So if you look at the map, we're in the state of Ohio. So of course, this gives you a very clear picture of the kind of weather we would have, because we very well understand the whole demographics. So if not, then of course you need to know that for sure. So we are in the state of Ohio. It's a smaller place comparatively. We have approximately 20,000 people living in Tiffin. Well, I would invite Jeremy to talk about Tiffin more than me, because he lives there.
So like Palaviv is sharing, it is a very small community, especially compared to some of the large cities within India. 20,000 people. We do have 2 universities, both private universities, Tiffin University and Heidelberg University, that are located within our city. As you can see, the United States has very different climates. So where Ohio is, we'll receive snow in the winter, but in the summer it's warm. Compared to Florida, it's warm all year round. Not quite as warm as it is outside today, but that's very important to understand. Depending on which state your university is located, you could have very different climates within the United States. Palaviv touched on earlier, where we're located, we're in a more rural or suburban community, but we're within an hour and a half to 2 hours to some larger cities like Cleveland, Columbus, Detroit. We're about, excuse me, about 4 hours away from Chicago. So a benefit of a more, excuse me, rural community is that it's safe, very family feeling, but yet you're in a close proximity to get to a larger city. And then, like Palaviv touched on before, we have been selected as one of the safest college towns in the entire United States. So that's another very important factor.
Right. So now when we move on with the research about the universities, now we've done all the prioritizing and understanding the university. Now it's time to apply. So one good question that you should always um, answer in your research is that what's the time to enter to the university? Now, most of the universities would have more than one intake. However, some may be restricted to just one intake. So please know that when you're really working on this, because sometimes what happens is there are certain particular programs which are not available for all the intakes. So please check that before you really apply, because like in our case, the forensic psychology, the master's in forensic psychology is not really available to all the intakes. It's only available to fall. So this happens many a time, because in general we accept the applications for fall and spring. However, there are certain programs which are only available for fall. So please make that note when you're making your notes for the universities in general. So when is the time to apply, and what are the deadlines? That's another important question, because what happens is most of the time when you're preparing for the university, you need to you miss this point, because there are a lot of test scores that are needed. There are a lot of other requirements that we have. So we need to also prepare that in advance, as you should reach that deadline for sure. Otherwise, it's the next intake which is available. So the financial aid process, like in our case, we do merit-based scholarships, so it is evaluated as part of the application process. However, some universities might require you to apply it separately, is what I understand. So please know that process when you finalize a particular university. Of course, one of the points that you need to keep in mind here is it's not just the cost that you're going to pay to the university for housing or meals or the tuition. It's also your living cost. So when you assess that budget, kindly keep that in mind, because, and of course, there are some medical and the other expenses that you may have to make when you're there. So kindly keep that buffer when you budget your finances. Okay? Right. So again, we're kind of touching base the same thing, and it's kind of a wrap up that we would like to talk about. So what the work that you have done so far would actually come out to the three important points: the cost, the financial aid, and academic programs, apart from the location, setting, and the points that we discussed. So at this stage, as we said, that you should know what is important to you. If you have figured out what is important to you out of these 7 areas, maybe it may be a case that not everything is very important to you. Like for some students, the location isn't really very important to them. The financial aid is. So if you have listed down those points, it is easier for you to finalize the list of universities that you have. Resources, Shantanu?
You can just.
Right. So again, these are a couple of resources that are available to you to research. Of course, one of them is educational fairs. I've been a very active member with the educational fairs at EducationUSA, or the USIF in India, and I know the kind of footfall we have over here. The idea is to understand what sort of options you have at the fair. So the student would come with a different requirement of courses, different requirement of financial aids. So this is probably a good way for you to come and talk to the universities directly. Then of course the websites. I know that has to be pretty elaborate in most of the cases, and this is where we work and we request a feedback from the students if you want to see something new at the website or something different at the websites, because most of the time it may not be very elaborate, But yes, the first source is definitely the websites that we have. Of course, the search engines which is very popular, the Google and the other search engines, where you can just type the name of the universities and you will find a lot of reviews, good, bad, ugly sometimes. But then, that's the point where you actually get a neutral aspect or neutral view on a particular university. So it is important to constructively use this particular resource. Of course, the campus visits and virtual tours, we do have, most of the universities have the virtual tours available on their website, so do we. We do have a drone video of the campus because most of the times we talk about the location setting more than the other things. So yes, we make this available for the students to see where we are, how the campus looks like. So it's a drone video which is taking a top shot of the university campus. So it's pretty convenient for the student to understand what we are talking about. When we really say it's a different campus, it's a small or a big campus, it's a 130 acres big campus. So it's helpful, and I guess most of the universities have that option. Some of the universities have the campus visits option as well. I know they are arranged separately. So yes, that's another resource. Of course, the last but not the least is the Education USA advising centers that we have in India. Shanti has given you the details about what sort of work they do in India. Maybe we can elaborate that further if you all need. But yes, this is one of the most important resource you have physically present in India, and that's, I guess, the most useful thing. You can anyway come down and talk about your requirements, what you're thinking about, and of course get the best advice from them. Shanti, I would request you to come here.
Okay, this is just to help those who are in this process. I mean, you can search many things, but there needs to be a tabulation or detailing of information that's required. So we recommend that you prepare a chart like this, which almost covers most of the attributes which now Pallavi spoke about. So when you have this listed out, it's easy to get a bird's eye view of your selections so that you can pick the best which best fits your requirement. So any student who comes to our center, we always recommend that they work on a broad Excel sheet with all these information listed out so that you have a clear understanding of why you picked that university. Otherwise, every time you go to a website and keep looking at it, you may not have the all the information in your mind to understand why this is better than the other. So we recommend that you work with this kind of a chart so that your research does not go waste.
Now, just so you understand what sort of different programs are available at Tiffin University, we've just listed down a few programs that we offer, which are more popular in India as such. So yes, we do have graduate and undergrad programs. Both are available to the international students. For the grads, we mostly do the MBA programs in 8 concentrations, which includes data analytics, marketing, finance, international business, leadership and change management, and of course the sports management program, which is my favorite program though. So yes, these programs are available. Then we have a master's in forensic psychology, which is a part of the criminal justice school, which is more for the students who are looking to do specific into the psychology field, which is more of a criminal psychology kind of a study. So students who want to get into the counseling of the criminals or the crime related people, or getting into the analysis like narco analysis or the lie detector test and all those stuff, so they would choose this kind of a program. So yes, going back to the same point, if a student is looking at a skill like this, they need to be very specific with their requirement, because not a general program would offer such a career path to the student. So yes, now I think you would relate to what we have talked about and how you should actually get down to that program very clearly. Undergrads, we do offer the programs in arts, which includes music, psychology, history, chemistry, the art entrepreneurship program, the communication programs, and the visual arts program. We do have the business programs at the undergrad level, which is more into accounting, finance, marketing, management, and of course the sports management program with 2 minors. One is the sports management and the other is sports marketing, which is a very, very interesting program. Moving on to the School of Criminal Justice and Social Sciences, we have criminalistics, corrections, cybersecurity, which is actually cyber defense and information, then digital forensic, and the forensic psychology, as I explained. So these are the list of programs which are available at Tiffin University. So if you're looking to really discuss further on this, I'm available here. Charmi is available right here, so we can go ahead in details. Great. Just to give a very quick view on the fee structure. Now, when we talk about the affordability, this could be very affordable for many of the students, but this could be tough for many students. You know, it depends on what your budget is. That's why budgeting is very, very important. So just to give you a quick view as to what tuition fee we have for all the programs, we have just listed down the details over here. So when you really look into the details of the fee structure, you should also look into the components of the fee structure, like what's the health insurance that you are supposed to pay, what's the housing, what's the meals, you know. If you have the on-campus housing, do you have meals available on campus, or you're gonna cook them on it on your own? So it depends, of course, university to university. However, we offer the housing and meals at the campus. So for the undergrad students, for example, we give it as mandatory for the undergrad students to be on the campus and have our meals, because as per policies, we do not allow them to cook. However, for graduates, we do allow them. We are a little flexible over there. So that's why when you really coming for a grad program, for example, you can very well assess what's the expense for the housing and meals. Are you going to take it from us, or are you going to do it on your own? So that will give you a very clear idea of what the fee structure would be for you and what's the budget you should think about, you know. So moving on to the scholarships, this is just an example for the students to understand how the merit-based scholarships work. So for example, sometimes when we have the GPA requirements, we would mark the scholarships as per the GPA. That's how the merit-based scholarships would work. So for example, for the undergrad students, if the GPA ranges between 2 to 2.79, the scholarship would be $3,000, and so on and so forth. Similarly, we would have different requirements for the graduate scholarship. So every university would have it differently. The idea here is to understand, you know, what sort of scholarship it is and how you're going to get it. So if you, let's say, have a merit-based scholarship like we do, you can very well imagine what kind of expenses it would be after you get the scholarship, right? Right. Right? Okay. So I think we are good so far, and thank you so much for joining this session. And I'm here for questions. If you have any questions, you can go ahead right away. Do we have online questions?
Does US support dual masters?
Sorry?
Does United States support dual masters?
In general, yes. In general, yes. A lot of universities, so when you say dual masters, you're talking about two majors studying at the same time. However, those have to be related, in my understanding. It would depend on the university for sure. Like in our case, we do offer the dual majors. In, like, let's say a student wants to study marketing and HR together, we do allow that. So, and sometimes it's a combination of a minor and a major. It totally depends on the universities, but yes, as I mean, if I have to answer your question in general for the US system, it does allow that. Yeah.
I have a question. It's about the program at your university.
Sure.
You talked about the criminal justice.
Yeah.
Most of the time we have a common understanding that these are all law-related programs. Yeah. But we understand it's a master's that you are offering, and it's not a professional law or anything. Yes. Does this help? Suppose somebody does a bachelor's at your school. Does it help them to go for the next level law professional program using this qualification?
So the question is, does it help to continue on with the Masters of Science in Criminal Justice and Forensic Psychology, for instance? Yes, it does. I would say we have many students that will continue on from their undergraduate, whether it's the business program or the criminal justice program, right on into the graduate program at Tiffin University. They'll stay on the pathway. They'll have many of the same faculty members, but gain different experiences as they go on for the postgraduate work. So yes.
So would it qualify them to go for a professional LLM degree or let's say a JD degree?
So the specifically the Masters of Science, Criminal Justice, Forensic Psychology, there's a lot of research involved with that. So that really will open up doors for students to proceed with a PhD program, for instance, that may provide the student the opportunity to teach at a higher education, university, or practice professional. Yes.
So if you're talking specific to the LLM, I'm getting that point. So yes.
Well, we really cannot say about that for us because we do not do that really, but it depends as to what subjects they have read as part of their undergrad programs. Our programs at Criminal Justice School do have law as their one of the few of the subjects, like law enforcement or criminalistics or victimology, you know, so that of course that's a US based law, not really the law that we study, but yes, in general that would depend as to what university would really look into.
And I think many times if students are looking specifically for a JD, many universities are going to look for other majors such as English or history because they're really looking for students' ability to think. And then when they go to law school specifically, you'll learn about the law when you're in law school. So it's more at the undergraduate level, learning how to interpret and understand what you're reading and be able to articulate clear messages and so forth, to be able to critically think.
Awesome. Any more questions?
Some students generally change their pathway. When if
Yeah.
I'm a student like who's studying undergraduate in computer science, if I want to change my pathway in my masters, what would be more helpful?
Well, that's a
good question because I see that you know, a lot of engineering students coming for the MBA
programs, which is usual, which is not new really. So yes, from the university point of view, it's important for us to understand how that particular program is going along with your career path. So yes, it matters what background study you have, of course, but it doesn't really stop you there. The important question that we need to know, the important answer that we need is how this particular program is going to help you with your career path. So yes, if you're coming from a computer science background, let's say going for data analytics programs, it's perfectly fine with most of the universities as far as you meet the requirements for the subjects and of course the academic requirements, and as well as what's your career plan is, because the essay really plays a very important role here as to what you're planning to do in future with this particular program. That's a very important question. But yes, most of the time, like for example, for forensic psychology program, we do need students come with a psychology background. So that sometimes restricts a lot of students to really come on that particular program. So there are some subjects which require the subjects to be studied at the background at the previous study. So yes, it depends subject to subject.
Yeah, I think a specific answer or example would be business.
Yeah.
So in order to start Tiffin's MBA programs, we're going to evaluate your undergraduate transcript to ensure that you had some business courses and also look at your life experience. If we find that you may not have a sufficient amount of those business-based courses, we have prerequisite courses in place that would allow you to take a course or two to prepare yourself for the MBA path, because we want you to be successful. So those are all good questions that you ask your college advisor on what that individual university's process and policy is in regards to that.
Excuse me. If I want to take a program which is not relevant to my subject, okay, I'm taking another, if I'm an electronics and communication engineer.
Right.
So if I want to study some HR related management subjects, or if I want to pursue my computer engineering, would you support us with some of the courses that are needed to
Yeah.
taking the degree.
Yes. So just take the first example that you're coming from engineering background, want to study HR. So yes, as Jeremy mentioned, we do have some foundation courses for business when you really come on board. So the first semester is all about the basic business courses. That's common to all the students, whether they're coming for HR, marketing, or any other concentration. So yes, we do provide those options to the students to study the basic courses for the business. As I said, from the requirement perspective, we also need to understand why you're shifting from the engineering to management. What's your career goal? That's a very important question that we would ask you all the time when you really switch the field from engineering to, let's say, business. So if you're clear on that and you are eligible for our requirements, of course, we do provide the foundation courses that are part of the course. That's not separate. Yeah.
Any age limit for master degree? Age limit is there or
Any age we can study.
So
Age limit on
so Shanti, I guess this goes to the visa as well.
no,
No.
it's open. I mean.
So it's open, yeah.
I am
Very open.
64 now, 64 completed. But some master degree, there I am engineering background, civil engineering.
Right.
Any in due course, if I want to study there, I can study or not.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I've seen this a couple of cases coming to the universities in the US studying at a later stage as well. So I don't think there's a problem with it. As far as you have the requirements met, and as far as you have your intentions clear, we're absolutely fine. Yeah, you're welcome. Great. Yes, please.
Actually, when is the correct time to start your applications? Like if I'm going to apply for the fall, when is the correct time to start my application works?
Well, I can talk about Tiffin University. In general, maybe Shanti can answer this question, but for Tiffin University, in case you're applying for fall, we would expect it to start in January, somewhere in January, December or January. So because we close our applications in May sometime, so this is what we expect from the students. However, the preparation really starts much earlier than this. The application particularly should start not later than January is what we expect. So.
Yeah, adding to what Pallavi said, if you remember, we had shown you a slide in the beginning of this presentation which says that it requires 18 months of preparation. So ideally, whichever year you are targeting, the previous year, October is the right time to complete with everything on your application. So always apply early. So the chances of getting scholarships are much higher when you send in your applications much earlier to the deadlines. So that's a primary point I would say. And I think with that we almost come to the end of this presentation, and we have just listed out the ways in which we help students who are aspiring to pursue their higher education in the US. So please come to your nearest EducationUSA centers, and we give the right information on US higher education for you. We have resource libraries which you can access, so the books would definitely help you to prepare your thing. And the next slide will just give us the ways in which you can connect with us. We have a common YouTube channel which is called EducationUSA India. We have a lot of presentations that addresses all your requirements on application process to US institution. Plus keep posting your questions to our Facebook page, EducationUSA India, and also you can connect with the US Consulate Chennai Facebook page through which we live stream all our sessions that are happening at the American Center. So go back to those videos which are already there in the reference library, so it would definitely help you. Apart from it, all of you can visit us in person at the American Consulate inside the American Center. We are open from Monday to Friday, 9:30 to 4:30. Please remember to carry a valid original government issued photo ID with you to enter this premises. And thank you for joining us today, and keep sending us your questions. We will be more than happy to help you with that. Thank you.